What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and the iPhone 6s was released back in 2015, and even though it's a great phone and has held up very well over time, surprisingly, is it still worth the money in 2020? And if you have one now, should you continue to hold on to it, or is it time to upgrade? Let's talk about it. So yes, the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus are now 5 years old in 2020. And to put that into perspective, Wiz Khalifa's See You Again song was all over the radio, Star Wars The Force Awakens was showing in theaters, and the first ever Apple Watch was unveiled by Apple when the iPhone 6s was released. And while that may make the technology inside the iPhone 6s seem old, it's still a very capable device that's at least worth considering in 2020, and here's why. So inside we have Apple's A9 chip, which is the same chipset found in the iPhone SE and also in the 2017 iPad 5th generation. And even though we only have 2 gigabytes of RAM, the RAM management is actually surprisingly good given the age of the phone. And that's of course thanks to iOS 13 and Apple's consistent optimization for older devices, which is still to this day just unprecedented. You don't see that on Android or any other operating system. And of course, this device is the current oldest device supported by iOS 13. And we'll talk about the future of the 6S and when it comes to iOS 14 and stuff like that later on down the road. But yeah, apps still open up fairly quickly and stay open in the background for a decent amount of time. I mean, games are surprisingly still fine to play without any major lag, and typing and doing your typical daily tasks is manageable with minimal lag. I noticed just some minor freezing on like the keyboard when I'm typing fast, and also when I'm like quickly going through the app switcher and going from one app to another, it does freeze up from time to time, but that's kind of expected for a 2015 device. And again, that's likely due to, of course, the age and the chip, but also that minimal 2 gigs of RAM. Now, one thing I will say is that if you've used any iPhone newer than the iPhone 6s, then you're probably going to be disappointed in how slow apps open up and the overall RAM management. But if you still have like an iPhone 6s now or are upgrading from an even older device, maybe like the 5 or the 6 or the 5S, it still works fine. Plus, using this phone will build up your patience, so you can look at that as a plus as well. I play games like Fortnite and Call of Duty and things like that, and there is some lag and the quality is not the greatest. I mean, it has auto settings to not very great graphics, especially in something like Fortnite, but games are still playable. I would probably buy an iPad, the cheap iPad if you're wanting to game. I probably would not recommend gaming on the 6S. I would definitely not buy it for that sole reason, not at all. But it's still doable. I mean, you're better off playing games though that are a lot less intensive, a lot more relaxed games like non-shooter games. Something like Subway Surfers and games like that run just fine on the iPhone 6s here. Now, speaking of storage, the iPhone 6s came in a huge variety of configurations. So we had multiple colors, but we also had 16, 32, 64, and 128 gigabyte models. So if you were to get one in 2020, I would definitely go for the 64 or the 128 gigabyte models, since the pricing is going to be similar across the board, regardless of your storage size. It's gonna be like $20 difference between the models. And of course, I will be talking about the price near the end of this video because that is one of the biggest factors for buying the iPhone 6s in 2020. But one thing I did want to mention also is that no matter what configuration you get, they are all gonna have 2 gigabytes of RAM. So now let's go outside of the body and talk about the build of the iPhone 6s. So of course, the overall design of this phone is very dated and definitely looks old. I mean, on the front side, we do have the bezels and they are quite ugly. I mean, obviously if you're used to the newer phones, they are gonna be quite ugly. But if you haven't used anything newer than like the iPhone 8, then this is not gonna bother you whatsoever. So we do have the home button down here as well. We do also have the headphone jack down at the bottom with our lightning port and our speakers right there. They're not stereo speakers. And of course, on the back side, we do have iPhone with the signature S right there to signify that this is indeed an iPhone 6s. We do have the antenna bands, which are pretty ugly. But once again, if you're used to it and you've used phones, like the iPhone 8 or older, it's not going to be a huge deal to you. I do like the chrome Apple logo there as well. Now, in terms of the overall durability throughout the years, I've never used the screen protector on this device, and it does have a few scratches, but it's actually surprisingly durable. I don't have many like really deep scratches. I have dropped the phone a few times as well. You could see a little bit of scuffs there on the bottom and then also up on the top right here, but nothing major. This phone is surprisingly pretty durable for such an old and such a fragile and light device. it's actually held up pretty well over the years. And of course, like I mentioned, we do have the headphone jack down here, which is going to be a big deal to some of you guys who use like studio headphones and things like that, and you need a headphone jack. You know, if you maybe record audio from your iPhone and you need to listen to it back, the iPhone 6S can be a great, cheap field recorder for you. So there are lots of reasons why people would still want an iPhone with a headphone jack. And then we do have the single firing 12 megapixel f2.2 lens right there, which does protrude a little bit, but it is a 12 megapixel camera, so it's not going to be terrible. And surprisingly, it does have the ability to shoot video in 4K 30 and 1080 60. So I wouldn't recommend anybody shoot 4K on this phone because even the 4K quality isn't like terrific. It's not going to blow you away. Plus, you're likely not going to have enough storage to be doing that, especially if you got like the 16, the 32, or even the 64 gigabyte model. You're not going to have a ton of space to be doing that. But it is a possibility to shoot 4K 30 on the iPhone 6S. This was the first iPhone able to shoot in 4K. The overall picture and video quality is just all right. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not Instagram worthy. You're not going to be taking like model shoots. You're not going to be shooting models or anything with this phone and showing up in magazines or anything like that. But you're not paying a cheap price for an amazing camera. You're just looking for a camera that gets the job done. And over time, I've taken so many pictures with the 6S and it does get the job done. It's not great for lighting or anything like that, but it gets the job done. You do also have dual tone flash and HDR, but you don't have portrait mode or anything like that. And I also noticed that videos on the iPhone 6S, just the regular 6S, not the 6S Plus, are very shaky since the digital image stabilization isn't really great on this phone. However, the iPhone 6S Plus has both digital and optical image stabilization. So if you're planning on shooting video, go with the iPhone 6S Plus over the iPhone 6S since it has both of those stabilization options. But once again, for the price you're paying, you can't really complain too much about the camera on this guy. Now on the flip side, the front-facing camera also isn't terrible. I mean, it's better than 1 megapixel like we've seen on previous iPhones. It's a 5 megapixel camera and FaceTiming on it is fine. I mean, it's not gonna blow you away with the quality, but then again, FaceTime is a lot of times determined by the actual connectivity, like your Wi-Fi connectivity. So not going to be a terrible experience. I mean, it's not going to be great. It's definitely going to be grainy, and videos and selfies taken are going to be grainy, but it gets the job done. As for the display on this guy, we do have a 4.7-inch LCD panel with a resolution of 750 by 1334 at 326 pixels per inch. So obviously not great in 2020, but it's still a passable screen. It's not going to, blow you away. And if you have anything newer, then you'll definitely notice a difference in the quality. But again, you're not paying like 100 to 150 bucks for a great screen to begin with. So this should not be a huge deal to anybody. I was still able to enjoy videos and, games and playing things like that perfectly fine on the iPhone 6S. Now, as for the battery life, you do get a 1700 milliamp hour battery. And while iOS 13 did improve the battery life a little bit, it's still not going to get you through a full day, unfortunately. You're going to have to charge multiple times throughout the day, which is a little bit annoying, especially since I do use some newer phones. So if you have used newer phones, you're definitely not going to enjoy the battery life on this. But if you haven't, you're going to be fine with the battery life. You're going to know to always, be around a charger or have a portable battery around you to plug in throughout the day, because you're definitely not going to make it through the day with one single charge. And of course, since we don't have a glass backing, we don't have wireless charging. We also don't have fast charging on this phone. So it is going to take a little bit to charge this guy up fully. And if you go into my settings and go down to the battery right here and take a look at my battery health, you can see my battery health here after years of owning this phone is down to 89%, which honestly isn't too bad for a phone from 2015. And I would definitely recommend, if you have this phone now, or if you're going to get it, to definitely use optimized battery charging to, further improve and, keep your health at a good health, like in the 80%. Once it goes down past that, you're probably going to have to get a new battery. And speaking of getting a new battery, you can get your battery replaced by Apple for 50 bucks. So you can have them do it and everything for 50 bucks, or you can order your own battery and install it yourself for like 10 bucks. It's super easy. I've done it. You can look up tutorials on YouTube. It's super, super simple. Or you can just have Apple do it for 50 bucks, which honestly isn't too bad if you plan on keeping this for a good amount of time. So now let's discuss the price and if you should buy the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus in 2020. So obviously Apple doesn't sell the iPhone 6S anymore. They haven't sold it for a good while now. So you're going to have to go to a site like eBay or Swappa or Facebook Marketplace. I prefer Facebook Marketplace and eBay and meeting up in person. A lot of times I like to do that to check for scratches and things like that. And I can also usually negotiate better in person, but I've used all three sites with success over the years, and definitely eBay. A lot of people always have concerns about eBay, but I've never gotten scammed on there or anything. And I actually made a video for buying a used iPhone and how to prevent getting scammed. So if you want to watch that video, it's down in the description below. I think it's vital for buying used iPhones. But anyways, you can pick up a used but good condition iPhone 6s for around 100 to 125 bucks, and that's regardless of the storage size. Like I mentioned, for that reason, I try to target the 64 or the 128 gigabyte models, since they go for just like $20 to $30 more than the 16 gigabyte models. And you're gonna thank yourself later, because 16 or 32 gigs is just simply not enough in 2020. I don't care what you do with your phone or how little you do, that is not enough space. So spend the extra couple dollars and get a 64 or 128 gig model. And honestly, for that price, there isn't a better smartphone on the market, especially given the current support with iOS 13. And even after it's not supported with iOS 14, which by the way, this phone is probably not gonna be supported with iOS 14, but you will probably get security updates and things after iOS 14 gets released. You'll just be stuck on iOS 13, but you'll still get security updates. So yeah, I think it's the best phone on the market for that super low price. So if you only have a $100 to a $150 budget, I say yes, the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus are definitely worth it in 2020, but only if you like the size of this phone. If you prefer a smaller form factor, then I think something like the iPhone SE will be a better buy for you. And that's because it has the same internals as the iPhone 6s and just a much smaller and more compact body. As you can see right here, the comparison in size between these two guys. Now, if you currently use an iPhone 6s or 6s Plus, first of all, let me know down in the comment below, because you are a trooper still using that phone in 2020. It's not bad, like I said, but it just takes a lot of will to keep using that phone and not give in to paying for the better phones out there. But anyways, should you continue holding on to the 6s or 6s Plus? And I say yes, at least until you see what comes out this year in 2020. We could be seeing the new iPhone SE2 or the iPhone 9, whatever it's gonna be called, early in 2020, like within a few months. And if that does happen, it would be the perfect phone to update to, since it'll be a budget-friendly phone with fast internals and a better screen than what you're used to. But of course, it's not going to be a better screen than like the higher-end models, like the iPhone XS or the iPhone 11 or 11 Pro. But it's going to be a better screen than what you're used to. I think it's going to be the perfect option to upgrade from like a 6S to the iPhone 9 or iPhone SE2. So definitely wait until that gets released before you even consider getting rid of your 6S or 6S Plus. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the iPhone 6S in 2020. Let me know what you guys think about this phone. Do you still have it? Did you have it? Let me know all your thoughts. If you agree with me, disagree, anything at all, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you guys, of course, did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss. I'll probably make another video on the iPhone 6S in late 2020 or maybe even in 2021. I probably will make one in 2021 as well to see if it's still relevant and still chugging along. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss that video. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.